I want to make sure all of you understand why it's important to listen to Jack and I. Who are we, and why does our advice matter at all? Well, as I said already, my name is Gina Gaudio-Graves. I am the Dean and Founder of Directions University at directionsuniversity.com. I didn't start out my life knowing that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My passion has and always will be teaching. I had done the research back in the 3rd grade to learn that the highest paid teachers around back then were law school professors. So I set my sights on going to law school just as a means to an end. I wanted to teach law so I could be a high-paid teacher. Well, I went to Notre Dame Law School, ended up going there, getting on the law review, starting my career as a lawyer. You have to pay your dues for a while before you can actually get accepted to teach, and thought things were going to go really, really well. After a few years, I finally had my opportunity to apply and got accepted to teach at my alma mater. But just 3 weeks later, I was in a very severe car accident that has changed my life to this day. Following that car accident, I spent 10 years in a hospital bed and wheelchair. I had more than 50 operations, and I turned to the internet in late 96, early 97 as a way to pay for the more than $40,000 a month in medical bills, medication, that was keeping me alive. My first business was a day trading chat room. And it was where I really learned a lot about being an entrepreneur and understanding how to build businesses strategically. I didn't have the money to start up these chat rooms and go into these chat rooms. They were expensive, $500 to $1,000 a month. So I used my passion, teaching, to get 5 different companies to let me come in and teach for free. They didn't pay me, I didn't pay them, in their chat rooms every day, 5 days a week. And that worked really, really well. I got into their rooms, I got a free membership, saved me almost $5,000 a month. And very quickly, people were starting to ask me when I was going to open up my own membership site. Remember, this is back in 97, not today. Back then, there were a handful of membership sites. That was all. Well, it seemed like a good idea, but I didn't want to hurt these 5 companies that were being so nice to me. They were giving me this great gift of a free membership after all. So I had to really think strategically about it and find a way that I could build my own membership site without hurting theirs. So I decided to do it a little bit differently. In order to even join my membership site, you first had to be a member of their membership site. And as long as you were, then you could get mine for a lot cheaper than any other day trading membership site around. That worked so well that within a couple of months, I had the 500 members that I had capped my membership site at. They were each paying $125 a month, making me more than $50,000 a month. So I had the $40,000 a month to pay for my medication. But oftentimes, as things happen, life happens too. And as life happened this time, my health started to decline even more. So much so that by 2000, 2001, after about my 4th back surgery, I was in this tortoiseshell brace that went from underneath my chin down to the tops of my legs. I was in that brace for almost 3 years. Well, I couldn't continue with the day trading membership site because I couldn't be at the computer for 12 hours a day. So I sold that business to one of my members and went into the second business, which I thought was going to become an internet ad agency. But again, customers started asking me for things that I hadn't really expected. This time they were asking me for a new kind of traffic, something they were calling joint venture traffic. I didn't know what that meant, but as a lawyer, I knew what a joint venture was. I knew what traffic was. So I figured maybe I could do some research and figure it out. And what they really wanted was a joint venture broker, someone that could take their amazing products and services and connect them to people that had large lists and lots of traffic. Well, that seemed easy enough. So I decided, yeah, I can do joint venture traffic, no problem. And I became one of the very first JV brokers on the internet, especially in the internet marketing world. And that's what I did from 2001 until 2007. And while that seems easy, I I started noticing a pattern. I could take people that had the most incredible products and services, connect them to people that had the ideal list, big list, and sometimes it made money and sometimes it didn't. Now, a JV broker gets paid on a percentage of the sales. I still needed my $40,000 a month to cover my medications, or I would die within 90 days. So I had to find a way to ensure that if I was organizing a JV, it had to be successful, or I wouldn't have a way to pay for those nuts. It took about 2 years to craft the system that is what I'm teaching you guys today. But once I found this system, what I call the vortex model of doing business, every joint venture I organized could be successful as long as it utilized that system. And while that made my JV brokering business excel quickly, so much so that people started calling me the JV queen within a year or two, again, life had other plans for me. It was in January of 2005 that my husband Bill and I learned that I had just 12 to 18 months to live. The next day he went into work, told his boss he'd be back, but he couldn't tell him when, that he needed to spend the next year or more with me until I was no longer here. He went out and found an RV that he could retrofit with my hospital bed and my oxygen and my IV pole. And within a couple of weeks, we hit the road, expecting we'd have about 8 to 10 months to see the country before it would be time to go home and die. 6 months into that trip, we were in Sedona, Arizona. I was celebrating my 41st birthday that week. And that week, as I had done every other week of this trip, I had taken my blood to different hospitals to have some tests done to send the results back to my doctors. Unlike all of the other weeks, that week I got 3 different hospitals sending me 3 different reports that all said exactly the same thing. And all 3 said something I didn't even know was possible from a blood test. All 3 said, this patient is clinically dead. That's how sick I was by my 41st birthday. Well, clearly Bill and I knew that this was definitely going to be my last birthday. And he wanted me to have the best last birthday that I could. So he decided to take me to a massage therapist in Sedona, Arizona, hoping that she could help me with the pain for just that one day. Gets me up on her table, gets me all situated, and she looks at me and she says, you know, you don't have to die as soon as you think. Well, I hadn't told her I was dying. Bill hadn't told her I was dying. Neither one of us knew how she'd even come to be able to say that. So I'm kind of chuckling to myself thinking, yeah, right, she's going to try and sell me something like everybody else does. But she wasn't trying to do that at all. In fact, she went on during that massage to give me the most incredible piece of advice. What she told me was that if I could remove the negativity from my life, I didn't have to die as soon as I thought. Well, I proudly explained that I was probably the most positive person she was ever going to meet. I didn't have issues with negativity. She kind of shook her head and said, if all I had was a positive mental attitude, it wasn't going to be enough to save my life. Well, that didn't seem to make sense, so I asked some more questions. And by the end of that one massage, she had helped me to see that I needed positivity in every aspect of my life, from my thoughts to my actions, from my actions to the people in my life. Literally everything needed to be positive. And if it wasn't positive, I needed to find a way to remove it from my life. So over the next 4.5 months, I researched this advice, and I applied as much of it as I could. So I removed people from my life. I stopped doing things like watching the news 24/7. Gets to be a habit when you're a day trader. Couldn't do that. That wasn't a very positive aspect of my life. And by the end of just 4.5 short months, I had gone from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane to walking with no assistance at all, even though to this day I have no feeling in my legs and feet, and I simply walk in balance by feeling the ground in my hips. I stopped 42 pills per day, 4 continuous IVs per day. I got my hair back and lost 68 pounds without even going on a diet. And by the end of just those 4.5 short months, I had gone from being at death's doorstep to being 100% well. It's what I call my miraculous transformation. And it made me look at everything differently. Life, business, you name it. And the one thing I really realized was I'd made a lot of money for a lot of people, myself included. By that point, I paid off about $6.1 million hard cash out of the $9.9 million worth of medical bills. But while I'd made a lot of money, I hadn't really done much of anything to make a difference. And that's why in January of 2007, I retired as a JV broker and closed that business and opened my next business, which is Directions University. And Directions University is really about 4 things. We help entrepreneurs and small business owners get direction for both their life and their business. We show them how to give direction to their prospects and customers. And in the end, our goal is really to help them impact the direction of the world. It was through my transformation that I realized that I really do need to repay the gift of life that I was given. And the only way I could come up with to do that, I mean, how do you pay back a gift as big as that? The only thing I could come up with was, if my mission became touching the life of every person on this planet, if I could really touch every life on this planet, maybe I could make a small dent in repaying that debt. And that's what we do at DU. By working with entrepreneurs, helping entrepreneurs and small business owners to really make a difference in the lives of their customers and their prospects, together we really can touch the life of every person on this planet.